spiritualism to idealism and a dynamic self-esteem. He wanted to religion to be toned down for some kind of toned down materialism. Religion, Advaita, should become part of the socio-economic progress of our country. So he wanted a toned down materialism, as in his own words. So this idealism, he said, you have to shift from that and make it a dynamic self-esteem. The message of strength is based on the message of strength of Vedanta. Standing on the self gives you tremendous strength. But he says we have not applied it practically. The strength which one gets by believing in the great glory of the self has to be manifested not only in the spiritual plane, but he says a little toned down form, it can help material welfare also, as a stepping stone to moksha or a higher ideal of life. So Swamiji, finally, he says, then we come to static religiosity, as was mentioned. Ranganathanji was very many times he mentioned static piety to dynamic spirituality. Spirituality which can be felt, which can be made practical and seen in day-to-day life, as we see the life of Sri Ramakrishna and Holy Mother. Holy Mother was a very embodiment of that practical spirituality. And coming to the role of women, I will conclude by that quote of Swamiji, when Swamiji says, and this has to be done by women. One of the reasons may be, he said, Sri Ramakrishna came to revive Shakti in our country. That is the reason. In one of the letters he says, if you don't understand the power of Shakti, I am very sorry, you have not understood Holy Mother, who she was. She will be the center around which the Shakti will be revived again. And he says, that is the reason for Sri Ramakrishna worshipping, accepting a woman as a guru, and also worshipping his own wife, his Sahadharmini, as a divine mother. So that respect, it is not just a symbolic worship of Shakti, but through that Swamiji has understood it in that way, that it is the women are the, because women, the very nature of Shakti is creativity, and without creativity, he wanted all Indians to be creative, to adapt itself to the needs of herself, to the needs of the present day society, changing society. Society is changing very fast. It has had influence. The Mughals came, the British came. There was a confluence of so many cultures. So it has to adapt and renew itself. And every time an avatar comes, every time a prophet comes, he comes with this new vision, the same philosophy but put in a new format, a new vision. And in this age, in this particular age, he said, it is to revive the motherhood of God that Sri Ramakrishna came. These are all great statements, great visions of Swamiji. It will take hours to discuss this. I will not go into the detail, but I will just present before you Swamiji's vision of future India, because there are so many stray quotations. Even if we just compile them and read them, we will not be able to finish within half an hour. So Swamiji himself says, when we say the globalization, the harmony of these three civilizations has to come through women. And he accorded a very high status to women's education, and even he wanted the Sharda Math to be established before Ramakrishna Math and mission. First the mother and her daughters, then the father and her sons, father and his sons. So that was the vision of Swamiji. We are yet to work it out, but these key ideas, if we think deeply and if we read the original works, because the original works read in the proper context, we will be able to understand what Swamiji's vision was. Was it merely spiritual? Because he was a very progressive type of prophet. You see, in the East and the West, he never comes to any conclusion. He says, oh reader, think for yourself. And he wanted our journals, our books to stimulate thinking. He himself was a very progressive person, always trying to recreate, regenerate, rejuvenate, but at the same time keeping the core eternal values intact. So I think my time is over. So this is the vision of Swamiji for future society. In the limited time, I could touch only two global trends and what Swamiji expected of us. There is a lot of thinking which needs to be done, and maybe we will start thinking in those lines to create a great Mother India. Thank you.
So we have heard a very beautiful talk by Swami Sarvasthanandaji Maharaj. How to rebuild India, the Swamiji's vision about future India, and he told us that why India is going down. Swamiji said only two reasons: neglect of the masses and suppression of the women. These are the two causes. Because of that, India was going down, downfall of India. And Swamiji has given us how we can develop this India. Svfs C Maharaj told that first we should focus on the man. So is the center point. If you change man, society will definitely change. That means we have to give right type of education to change this man's mentality. Then he has just mentioned to revive this motherhood of women, or to revive this Shakti, Holy Mother has come. So we must respect women, we must educate them and helping them to come up in life. As a bird cannot fly only with one wing, so likewise society cannot develop only with men, but we want men and women. And then he has mentioned, Swamiji has given us, that to develop society we need to help poor people. So neglect of the masses means we did not care for them, and without food we cannot think of God. Empty stomach is not fit for religion. So he told that little bit materialism is also necessary to feed the people, to feed the masses. It doesn't matter even little materialism when there are only few people take up the spiritual life, and majority of the people live in this world. Should they sacrifice, should they suffer only for the few? So little bit materialism is also necessary to feed our empty stomachs, so that they will slowly come to the religion and they will think of higher things. So this point has beautifully put before us. Now we have another speaker, Mr. Devasis Mukherjee. He will speak on role of electronic media in future education. So I request him to enlighten us on this subject.
My pronouns to revered Swamijis, my pronouns to the revered Matajis, and namaskar to all of you, ladies and gentlemen. I am neither an expert in electronic media nor in education. However, I'll try my best to tell you what the possible roles of electronic media may be in future. Swamiji had a very comprehensive idea of education. Education, according to him, was to impart skills, both technical skills and life skills. Education had to communicate ideas, concepts. Education also had to inculcate values which would form character in an individual. Electronic media, as we see, has a role to play in all the three aspects of this comprehensive education. In the conventional education, where normally skills are imparted and ideas and concepts are communicated, electronic media has a great deal of role to play, and it is already playing a great deal of role. But then there is another class of education, we call it value education for possibly want of a more appropriate term. And we at the Ramakrishna Mission New Delhi over the last 4 or 5 years have been doing some work in value education at the level of schools in and around Delhi, and we have been using electronic media to some extent in that endeavor. So my talk will be essentially in two parts. In the first part, we will take up the conventional education, and we will see how electronic media is used in school classrooms. Then we will see how electronic media is being used in university educations. And then finally, in the first part, we will see how electronic media can be used in what are called informal learning environments. Let's start with the first of these two, in classrooms. Most classrooms, not most, many schools, many affluent schools in Delhi have classrooms equipped with what are called smart boards, kiosks, and equipment like that. You have a projector which projects images onto a whiteboard. There is a computer connected to it. In many cases, these computers themselves are connected to a server machine somewhere. And there is a lot of available courseware which the teachers can use through these equipments in classrooms. What these softwares generally provide is a whole array of video programs, assessment software, quizzes, tests, and other things. Software tools for management of teaching, where teaching is actually broken into steps, where there are checkpoints, and the teachers can actually verify they have done this and that and not missed out anything, and so on. All this data that is collected in classrooms can be archived and then accessed by teachers, by parents, by administrators for taking various management decisions. Long-term records can be kept and long-term patterns can be studied. All this is in place. But these techniques do not add anything substantial to the traditional way of teaching in classrooms. You still have that linear one-way stream of information from either a book or a teacher into the brain of the child, and you expect the child to get enriched. And this is a very short-sighted use of technology for education. The education of future will use technologies in much more innovative way so that the entire paradigm of teaching can be substantially changed. And what do I mean when I say that? In future classrooms, we will want students to collaborate and discuss ideas and possible solutions. They're not just going to be given information or ideas. They will be given an environment where they will themselves figure out and discover ideas. Project-based learning designed around real-world context. Connecting with other students around the world on topics of study. Immersing students in a learning experience that allows them to grapple with a problem. And gaining higher order thinking skills from pursuing the solutions. What we have in mind, or what many, these are not my original ideas, these are ideas of eminent people who have worked in the field of education, and they think that technology must provide this kind of environments rather than lectures or information where children can, or the students can actually learn as they grapple with that environment. This is a process of discovery as against the one-way linear model of education that we have been seeing. And there are already certain trends in education. Some pioneers have already tried out certain ideas which are quite promising. And I will mention one such idea in a little bit of detail, and I will leave you with two other ideas by just mentioning them, because time will not permit me to go into the details of those. The first idea, digital games, computer games. it's generally a very discredited idea. Everybody thinks they ruin the people who use games. But not all computer games are violent, not all computer games are essentially motor reaction dependent, and there are strategy games, there are games which are called mazes, where the player is not really struggling with anything for real-time gain, but actually exploring an imaginary world. And these games have actually been used by many pioneer teachers, mostly in the United States and some even in countries like Norway and Germany. And one such game is a game called Civilization. It's a commercially available game, off-the-shelf software which people can buy and play. Most of these games are actually quite expensive to produce. And that is one reason why commercially available software has been used. It's very, very expensive to make something from scratch, an educational game from scratch. Civilization is actually a game where the task is to build enduring civilizations. And in the cyber world, there are many competing civilizations. When the player enters the game, he is actually faced with competing civilizations. He joins one particular of those civilizations, and he is not the only one. There are others who are already part of that civilization, and he can cooperate with them, he can interact with them, and he will have to take decisions regarding economics, regarding sociology, regarding educational trends and other things within that civilization. New technologies at random crop up, and they have to actually grapple with those technologies, their implications. They have to figure out what the implications are. And all these things have been actually used in classrooms by a very eminent teacher. I forget his name. He teaches in a school in Minnesota, and he has used Civilization to demonstrate that the students in his class actually come up with very high scores on life skill after spending hours playing this game. Not anything else. Just playing this particular game, they come to respect other people's opinion, they come to have skills in negotiating with others, and so on. One more example of another commercially available game is the digital game of World of Warcraft. Now, the very name suggests that it is not educational. Okay, it's a violent game. Warcraft. It is about managing technologies, really. So what the player is actually doing is he is exposed to a whole gamut of warfare technologies, and he is trying to develop better technologies. But if you don't look at the warfare aspect of this particular game, then you will see that that particular player can attract, evaluate, and recruit other members. Depending on what skills they have, he can actually recruit them to do a new innovative type of warfare equipment. People can create apprenticeship programs within the game. They can orchestrate group strategies by teaming up with others. And they have to have a huge skill in managing disputes. Because in these scenarios, if there are conflicts, the loss is immense for both the parties. Whoever wins loses a great deal. So managing disputes is one of the hallmarks of this game. And in spite of being a violent Warcraft related game. This game too has been actually used in giving students a whole lot of life skills which otherwise they do not get exposed to in the normal course of classrooms. The fact that digital games hold a lot of promise is actually emphasized by this particular game. It's called Lure of the Labyrinth, and it has been designed by a small group in Massachusetts Institute of Technology called the MIT Education Arcade. The Education Arcade was basically formed because people at MIT thought that digital games hold a lot of potential in classroom education. And they have come up with this game, which is really a voyage or a quest inside a underground maze of immense complexity. And the task is to go and rescue or recover your pets. And some evil character is actually stealing those pets. And you manage to rescue those pets by solving correctly problems in algebra. So from time to time you are faced with an algebra problem which you have to figure out the solution to and then go further in the maze, and it's extremely interesting. It's almost interesting to the point of being addictive, it has been said. But what it tests is essentially your knowledge of not just solving algebra problems, but since it's a team game, you have to communicate those solution ideas to others. And it also tests how effectively you do that while playing the game. So if you have managed to solve one particular problem and got into a portion of the maze where others are still not privy to, you can tell them that this is how you solve such problems. They will also encounter algebra problems, not the same one that you encountered. It will be randomly different. But the techniques that you use to solve your problem can be used by others to solve their problems as well. So if you can communicate those technique ideas to others who are your friends, then you stand to gain. Games are one such digital tools which can change the very way we teach in classrooms. There are two other major promising areas. One is called simulations. Computers are becoming far better in simulating real worlds. Okay? Chemistry labs have been simulated for many decades now. I mean, you can do chemistry laboratory experiments on computer with immense pedagogical value to it. All the salt tests and others that we do in chemistry labs can actually be done on computers. Okay. Titrations can be done. Even dynamics of chemical reactions can be studied, all under simulations. Simulations can be used for other kind of laboratories. Simulations can be used for modeling economics, economic models, social models, and a great deal of insight can be found within those simulated environments. That is one promising area in which technology will eventually be used to transform classroom learning. The other is social networking. Again, social networking is a highly discredited term, and we don't mean the kind of social networking that Facebook gives you access to. We need, particularly for school students, we need social networks where highly monitored and moderated, And there are already attempts within the Western world particularly, where very highly moderated social networks are being used for creating communities which are not geographically in one place. So you have a worldwide distributed community of students who interact through such social networks and who actually find solutions to pressing problems in places like sub-Saharan Africa and so on. Going forward from classroom educations, let's see what has been done in universities. In 1999, Dr. Robert Brown, who was at that time the provost of MIT, set up a small committee and gave them the task of coming up with a recommendation as to what MIT should do in this highly connected world of the future. And the MIT Open Courseware program actually came out of that committee's work. By 2003, the MIT had actually decided to open up all their university courses to anybody and everybody for free. All the lectures that are done in MIT are actually video recorded, they're somewhat edited, and then put up in this website for anybody to download and hear. Okay, they are available in video formats, in audio formats. Notes, textbooks, quizzes, term papers, examination papers, along with solutions are all available. And since 2003, this work has actually inspired more than 250 institutes worldwide to make similarly available all their courseware to the web-enabled world. So MIT's open courseware is a kind of a pioneering endeavor, and it has inspired almost all major universities in USA to open up their lectures and class notes and so on. There is one problem, however. People who have used such portals complain that it's not quite a replacement. I mean, you can't actually sit through those lectures and hope to learn the topics exactly as you would if you sat in a classroom. Because classrooms are somewhat different. Okay, you can interact with the teacher, you can ask questions, the teacher can ask questions to figure out whether people are understanding the topic or not, and so on. To improve upon this structure of MIT Open Courseware, a new venture called Coursera, again, it's a non-profit and a free enterprise which allows anybody to log in and actually take up online courses. They offer more than 600 courses, and it's an education platform that partners with top universities. So they don't do the courseware development themselves. They partner with a university to get a courseware done, and their lectures are very different from the MIT lectures. The lectures are actually organized in small modules, and after every module there is a whole series of questions to which you can answer online, and they have the computer behind it to actually figure out what the answer is, figure out whether it is correct or not, give instant feedback, and so on. The innovations that Coursera has brought are these. First is called mastery learning. Mastery learning is an approach based on the educational work of a psychologist called Benjamin Bloom. Okay? And all mastery learning involves is actually splitting up a whole topic into small sections. And you start with the first, until you have mastered the first one, you don't go to the second. And Coursera actually imposes this on the student who is taking the courses. The second thing Coursera does is it has found out some innovative ways of evaluating and assessing assignments and papers. The general computer-based assessment is basically you have multiple choice questions and the computer then assesses it. But the problem is in many subjects, multiple choice questions are not adequate. And Coursera has actually devised, since it has a huge number of students, it can actually pass on